Hello everyone, my name is Gabriella Lepore, and this is my individual presentation for the Ethics of Creativity, Chapter 8. And right before I go into my presentation, I just wanted to do a little speak about me section before I talk for 20 minutes about my presentation. I'm going into my sophomore year as a BFA acting and BA psychology student with a minor in drama therapy. And in my free time when I'm in the city, I volunteer and work at Mount Sinai Hospital with Kids Zone TV. So, hope you enjoy my presentation. Today, I'll be presenting Chapter 8, Engineering, Ethics, and Creativity. Ere the Twain Shall Meet by David H. Cropley. The chapter explores the relationship between engineering, creativity, and ethics, arguing that engineers cannot simply create innovative solutions. They also have a responsibility to consider how those solutions affect society. Cropley challenges the idea that creativity exists separately from ethics and instead demonstrates that the two should work together throughout the engineering design process. I chose this chapter because it challenges one of the biggest assumptions people make, that creativity is always a good thing. Instead, Cropley argues that engineering innovation must also be guided by ethical responsibility. As technology develops faster than ever, engineers are constantly making decisions that affect safety, privacy, and even human lives. I found this especially interesting because creativity isn't just about inventing something new, it's about deciding whether the invention should exist and how it should be used responsibly. The central argument of this chapter is that engineering is a fundamentally creative process. Engineers constantly solve open-ended problems and develop new solutions. However, creativity by itself is not enough. Ethical thinking must be present throughout the whole design process to ensure those creative solutions actually benefit society instead of causing it harm. Cropley argues that responsible engineering exists where creativity and ethics overlap. One of the chapter's first major diagrams explains engineering as an ongoing creative process. Rather than following one fixed formula, engineers repeatedly identify problems, generate ideas, evaluate those ideas, test them, and then improve them. An important point Cropley makes is that ethical considerations should not only appear after the design is finished, they should influence every stage of this cycle. This diagram introduces one of my favorite concepts from the chapter. The theoretical design space represents every solution an engineer could possibly imagine. But in reality, engineers operate within a much smaller available design space because practical limitations exist. Budget, technology, legal requirements, physical laws, and ethical responsibilities all reduce the number of acceptable solutions. Cropley argues that ethics is one of the most important boundaries shaping this available design space. At first glance, constraints might seem like they limit creativity. However, Cropley argues the opposite. Ethical constraints actually encourage engineers to think more deeply and produce better solutions. Instead of simply building the fastest and cheapest product possible, engineers must also ensure it's safe, fair, and beneficial. The chapter reframes constraints as tools that shape responsible innovation. One of the most creative ideas in this chapter is problem reformulation. Rather than ignoring ethical constraints, engineers can redefine the problem itself. Changing the question often opens entirely new possibilities. This demonstrates that ethics does not stop creativity. It redirects creativity towards more responsible and innovative solutions. Before moving on, I'd like everyone watching to think about this scenario. Imagine you're the lead engineer. The bridge technically meets the legal requirements and saves millions of dollars, but it carries a slightly greater long-term risk. Would you approve it? There isn't an easy answer, and that's exactly Cropley's point. Engineering decisions often require balancing creativity and with ethical responsibility. This chapter makes a compelling ethical argument. Engineers don't simply create objects, they create systems that influence people's lives. Cropley emphasizes that ethical responsibility means thinking beyond whether something functions correctly. Engineers must also consider who benefits, who may be harmed, and what unintended consequences could occur. Innovation should be measured not only by technical success, but also by its impact on society. Cropley presents creativity as the foundation of engineering itself. Most engineering problems do not have one perfect answer. Instead, engineers continuously generate possibilities, evaluate alternatives, revise designs, and adapt to changing conditions. Interestingly, the chapter argues that constraints often make engineers more creative because they encourage deeper thinking and more innovative solutions. After reading this chapter, my biggest takeaway is that ethics should never be viewed as something that limits creativity. Instead, ethics helps direct creativity towards solutions that genuinely improve people's lives. As technology like AI continues to develop, this balance between innovation and responsibility will become even more important. I'll leave you with this one final question. Can an invention truly be considered successful if it creates significant harm for society, even if it is technically brilliant? Thank you.